Hi, good morning. Today we are going to define the concept of the dimension of a finite dimensional vector space. Most of the beginners may begin to wonder, without knowing the concept of dimension, how do you talk about finite dimensional vector space, right? But that's actually not needed. We will see that. Okay, in fact, we have to define finite dimensional vector space and then do something. Okay, we'll do that. Okay, let us share the thing. And as usual, a very basic reference for this lecture is my book on linear algebra, a geometric approach. Okay, and there is also an article which I just wrote for this lecture, which is called the dimension of a vector space, that is downloadable from the standard MTTS website. The URL is given in the screen to be shared now. Yeah, okay. So let us start doing. So let us first define if so let B be a vector space over a field F. If you want, you can take it to be R, okay, over any field, right? So we want to define what is meant by finite dimensional. So we say V is finite dimensional if there exists a finite subset, call it S, in V, so that V is the linear span of S. Okay, let us recall what is linear span of S. So a vector V in V, and when does V belong to linear span of S? If there exists vectors v1 to vk in S and scalars c1 to c to ck in the field, such that V is of the form summation ck vk cj vj j equal to 1 to k. You understand that? So ls of S, let me just recall, this is collection of c1 v1 plus ck vk, where k could be any natural number and cj's are scalars in the field, and v1 v2 vk are elements of S. Okay, at present notice that I am not assuming whether it is infinite, finite or anything, but ls can be defined. Okay, you understood that? Okay, in particular if S itself is v1 to vk, okay, then we will write this as c1 v1. Any element of LSS will be of the form c1 v1 plus c2 v2 plus ck vk, where this is not required. v1 to vk in S is not required, but all the scalars cj must be in the field, right? Notice that vj belong to ls of S. Why? I take cj equal to 1 and ca equal to 0 if I is not equal to j. Then vj belong to that. You understood that? Okay. It's also, we had already seen, the ls is the smallest vector subspace containing the set S. Okay. But this all we had already seen, so it's unnecessary repetition. Let's stick to the definition here. So when is V is finite dimensional? If I can find its finite subset S of V, so that V is ls of S. Okay. For the time being, assume V is non-zero. It's not a zero vector subspace. I will make a remark about it at the end, or you can find it in my article. Okay, let us avoid zero vector space for the time being. Okay. So we had already also we have defined what is meant by a basis. Okay, a subset B is a basis. We had already seen 4 equivalent conditions, right? If B is a minimal spanning set, or it's a maximal linearly independent set, or we had also seen it as spanning and linearly independent. And also we have seen if any vector v, okay, admits an expansion of the form c1 v1 plus cn vn, okay, and this expression is unique where b is v1 to v1. Okay, right. Now what is that we want to talk about now? So let v be a finite dimensional vector space, okay, and let b1 and b2 two different bases. The plural is bases, SES, not SAS, base of v. Okay, then what I want to say is this, okay, number of elements we will denote by mod b1 to be the number of elements in b1, and similarly mod b2 number of elements in b2. The claim is these two numbers are equal. This is the major theorem which you want to prove. Is that understood? Please pause, review, proceed. Understand the what you want to prove? Okay. The proof, okay, I will give two proofs. In the article I had given three proofs. Okay, I'll give you the two proofs. The first proof is the simplest, which you can find in my book on linear algebra. Okay, and it depends on some well-known fact. See, what we want to see, let us recall a basic result about homogeneous system. Okay, suppose I have a homogeneous system Aij xj j equal to 1 to n equal to 0 for 1 less than or equal to I less than or equal to m. Okay, and what does it mean? This means a11 x1 plus a1n xn equal to 0 and so on, am1 x1 plus amn xn equal to 0. Okay, then such a system is called homogeneous system of linear equations. And let's assume, if you assume m is strictly less than n, that is the number of equations, m is the number of equations, is less than the number of variables or unknowns x1, x2, xn. Okay, if that be the case, there exists a non-trivial solution of the system. What does it mean? There exists C1, C2, Cn, okay, where in the field Fn, and so that this is different from 0. That means C1, C2, Cn is not equal to the 0 vector 0, 0, 0. That means what? There is a j, so that Cj is not equal to 0. Is that clear? And so this is what we meant by non-trivial. Now what is meant by solution? That means in place of xj, I substitute cj, then what do I get? I get aij, fix I, the ith equation, then cj, this is j equal to 1 to n. Okay, this is 0, and for which I? For each I. Therefore, it's a simultaneous solution of all the m equations, and it is non-trivial in the sense it's not 0, 0, 0 solution. Because remember, for homogeneous system, 0, 0, 0 is always a solution. That is what is called trivial solution. Okay, a proof of this, a very simple proof using Gaussian elimination trick and induction, can be found in my book. Okay, refer to my book for a simple proof. Most often this is proved using echelon form, row reduction, etc. Okay, but it is essentially Gaussian elimination. Okay, so please go through the proof, PRP. Okay, understand this result because we are going to use it in a minute. Okay, now the proof that any two bases have the same number of elements depends upon a following proposition. Okay. Which is very interesting in its own right. Suppose V is a vector space, V is any vector space, okay, and let S equal to V1 to Vk, okay, and assume that I have, maybe write it n, I don't care, W1 to Wn plus 1 belong to the linear span of S. You understand that? S has n vectors, but what I am looking at now, I am looking at n plus 1 vectors. See, we are not saying they are distinct. They may or may not be. Okay, you understand that? Okay, take any n plus 1 vectors, W1 to Wn plus 1. Where does it belong to? It belongs to the linear span of V1 to Vn, sorry, V1 to Vn. Okay, then what you want to claim is this set W1 to Wn plus 1 is linearly dependent. So look at this intuitively. I do not know whether my set S, V1, V2, Vn is linearly dependent or independent. I have no idea. But what all I know is in the linear span of that S, I am taking any n plus 1 vectors. Okay. Again, there may be 0 vector and some other vectors may coincide. I don't care. Take any n plus 1 vectors in the linear span of S, then this n plus 1 vectors will be linearly independent set. Is the statement clear? Okay. Now how do I prove that? Okay. The proof is very easy once given the fact about the homogeneous system just now I quoted. See, to show this is linearly independent, what is that I have to do? I have to find scalars. Okay, we have to find scalars. Scalars for 1 less than or equal to j less than or equal to n plus 1. So that, see, if you want, let us say ci, I into n plus 1. Okay, so that what happens? At least one Cj is non-zero. And with what property? C1 W1, C2 W2 plus Cn plus 1 Wn plus 1 must be 0. Right? That means C1 to Cn plus 1 is not the 0 vector. So I have to find such a j. Right? Now, these are the unknowns. What are the unknowns now? C1, C2, Cn plus 1. Okay. Now go back to the last theorem. What did it say? Number of unknowns should be greater than the number of equations. Then I can always find a non-trivial solutions. You see that? So I have to generate a system of homogeneous system of n linear equations, or maybe even less than n. Okay, because the unknowns are C1 to Cn plus 1, they are n plus 1 in number. Do you understand that? So how do I do that? Where is n here? Remember, S is V1 to Vn. And what is W1 to W1 plus 1? They are in the linear span of S. Therefore, each Wj, right? Each Wi, I can write it as ai1 v1 plus ain vn. Belong to the field. This is m. You understand this? Why? Because wi is in the linear span of S. S consists of v1 to vn. Therefore, I should be able to find a linear combination. I should be able to write wi is a linear combination of v1 to vn. You understood that? Good. Now, what do you think I am going to do? Okay, this is true for each and every I, and this I is n plus 1. Okay, right. Now we substitute this expression for wi in this equation. So what I'm looking for? We are looking for C1. What is W1? A 1j Vj, j equal to 1 to n plus etc. C n plus 1 a n plus 1 j vj, j equal to 1 to n. This must be 0. Do you understand this? Yeah. So let us write it in a shorthand. That means I'm looking for Ci and Wi is Vi. This, okay, this j equal to 1 to n and I equal to 1 to n plus 1. This must be 0. I have to look for Ci so that this happens. You understand this? Yes, I'm just rewriting this equation. Ci Wi equal to 0 summation. Yeah. Now this is a finite sound. Therefore, okay, you know, using the various properties of vector spaces, Ci, I can take it inside. This I will run over. You understand that? A of C, Cx plus dy will be Acx plus A dy, where C is and D are scalars, X and Y are vectors, A is a scalar, you know all these things. So using that, what do I get now? I get it as I equal to 1 to n plus 1 and j equal to 1 to n, Ci Aij Vj is 0, right? This left side I want to write is a linear combination of Vj alone. That is, I want to collect the coefficients of Vj. All right, what is this? This is equal to, start with j equal to 1 to n and I equal to 1 to n plus 1 of Aij Ci, okay, into Vj equal to 0. You understand that? What is the coefficient of Vj? Is what I am collecting. Yeah. So what is the coefficient of Vj? Look at this. That's going to be C1 into A 1j and Cn plus 1 into An plus 1j. That's what we are writing. Yeah. Are you happy? Okay. Now this is where something occurs to us. So what to look at? We want a homogeneous equation for which C1 Cn plus 1 must be a solution. I want an n equation. Now let's look at that. J running from 1 to n. I want this to be 0. So yeah, an idea strikes us that suppose I make this equal to 0, whatever is in the bracket equal to 0, then the summation will be 0. You understand? That means what? That means I have to look for Ci such that Aij Ci and I running from 1 to n plus 1 must be 0. This is for which j? J running from 1 to n. You understood this? I'm just writing this. So for each j, this bracket must be 0. That means Aij Ci must be 0. You understood that? So how many equations are there? N plus 1 equations. Sorry. How many equations are there? N equations. And how many unknowns are there? Unknowns are C1 to Cn plus 1. There are n plus 1 unknowns. So what does our theorem say? Our result about homogeneous system says there exists a non-trivial solution. What does it mean? There exists C1 to Cn plus 1, which is in Fn plus 1 minus 0. So that this is true. Star holes. Okay, it's a simultaneous solution of the homogeneous system. So if that is a simultaneous, if C1 to Cn plus 1 satisfy this, that means this is 0. Okay, but this is 0 means you can, this equal to this, left side equal to this side. That is equal to this. And that is equal to Ci Wi. You understood that? So what have we shown now? Therefore, we found this so that C1 W1 plus Cn plus 1 Wn plus 1 is 0 and there is at least one j, so that Cj is not 0 or Ci. If okay, that all right? Please pause, review, and then proceed. You follow that? So we found C1 to Cn person such that this is 0. That means this is 0. And therefore this multiplied by Bj is 0. But then this summation can be rewritten as like this Ci. But Ci can be taken out. That is summation j equal to 1 to n Aij Bj is 0. But this is your Wi. Therefore, what do you think I have proved? I have proved summation I equal to 1 to n plus 1 Ci Wi is 0. Okay. Make sure, just don't think it's all right. Okay, you should never assume that I'm correct. Okay, you should always check, cross check. You should convince yourself. Good. So now what have we proved? Now we have proved this proposition. Now let's go back to the theorem. What is the theorem I want to prove? Theorem I want to prove is V is a finite dimensional vector space and B1, B2 are bases of V, then number of elements in B1 equal to number of elements in B2. You understood that? Okay. Now the first thing is you should ask the question, why B1 or B2 must be finite set? Okay. Notice that we have said V is a finite dimensional vector space. That means there is a finite set, yes. So that V is LS of S. This is a finite set. Let us say it has n elements. You understand? Now B1 is a subset of LS of S. You understand that? Yeah. Therefore, the number of elements in B1 should be less than or equal to n. Why? If it is greater than n, then this is linearly dependent. Do you understand that? If B is any basis of V, then since B is a subset of LS of S, okay, number of elements in B must be at most number of elements in S. Because if it is greater than that, then B will be linearly dependent. But since it's a basis, we know it is linearly independent. That's a contradiction. Therefore, we know B1 and B2 are finite sets always. Is that clear? Very good. So now therefore I can talk about the number of elements in B1 and number of elements in B2. I want to say they are equal. But that again the same argument. Now let's look at B2. Let us assume B1 number of elements in B1 is m, number of elements in B2 is n. Okay. Now notice that B2 is a subset of LS of B1, which is V. Right? Therefore, by the argument above, therefore, what do I know? Number of elements in B2 should be less than or equal to number of elements in B1. Right? Are you following? In place of S, I'm using B1 now. Yeah? B2 is contained in the linear span of B1. Therefore, number of elements in B2, okay, must be less than or equal to number of elements in B1. Because if it has more elements, then B2 will be linearly dependent. That's a contradiction. So similarly, B1 is a subset of LS of B2, and therefore number of elements in B1 should be less than or equal to number of elements in B2. Therefore equality holds. So proof follows. You understand that? Therefore number of elements in B1 is same as number of elements in B2. Please go through the proof. Okay. Now we are ready to make the definition of dimension. So let V be a five-dimensional vector space over a field F. Okay, then let B and be a basis of V. Notice that we do not know whether there is a basis for V. That we don't know as of now. But suppose B is a basis of V, right? Since it's a finite dimensional vector space, we know B is finite set, and dimension of V by definition is number of elements in B. Do you understand? Now you will see the need for our earlier theorem. Why? Suppose B dash is another basis, okay, then another person will define dimension of V to be number of elements in B dash. Okay, if B and B dash have different number of elements, then I will be in trouble. What is the correct definition of dimension? You understand? But such a case does not arise because any two bases B and B dash will have the same number of elements as per the last theorem, right? So that's what one usually mathematicians call it. This is well defined. The notion of dimension of vector space is well defined because to define it I have to choose a basis. So apparently the dimension of V depends upon your choice of basis because it counts the number of elements in B. If somebody else chooses some other basis, okay, the number of elements in the basis may be different and hence the dimension may be also be different according to him. But such a case cannot arise. Okay, please understand. If you are a second year BSc student, it's better to go through it again. Understand? Okay, so that's about it. As a corollary, okay, this is a thing which you will always use. Suppose V is a finite dimensional space and let's assume dimension of V equal to n, then any set S in V such that mod S is strictly greater than n will be linearly dependent. Do you see that why? Because mod S is greater than n, that means there is at least n plus 1 vectors. At least n plus 1 vectors V1 to Vn plus 1 in S. Right? Now V1 to Vn plus 1 belong to the linear span of a basis B. Because when you said the dimension of V equal to n, that means you already have found a basis. You understood that, right? But this basis has n elements. Okay, and these n plus 1 vectors belong to this. Therefore, they must be linearly dependent. Since V1 to Vn plus 1 is linearly dependent, yes, okay, a superset of this set of elements. Therefore, that will also be linearly dependent. Is that clear? Okay, V1 to Vn plus 1. This is contained in S. This is already linearly dependent. Therefore, S is linearly dependent. Okay, that's it. So this is very often used. Okay, so it's better to learn that. Okay. Okay. Since in another thing we had already found basis, in another thing we'll find how to find the dimension in another video that is already published. You can see that. So I don't want to give examples of spaces and their dimension. That is treated in another video. But what I want to do now is I want to give a standard proof which you find in many textbooks. Standard proof of what? That is, if B1 and B2 are two bases for a finite dimensional vector space, then the number of elements in B1 is same as the number of elements in B2. Therefore, dimension concept is well defined. Okay, for this I want another proof. Okay, the reason I want to do that, it uses an important trick, a lemma, and the argument of the lemma is used many times in algebra in other contexts. Okay, and also the proof of the lemma makes use of linear algebra very well, so that you know you become confident of various concepts in linear algebra. So for that reason, I would like to give that proof also. Okay, am I making myself clear? Okay. Now let's look at an example. Before I want to say what the lemma is, let us look at Rn, and let's assume n is greater than or equal to 3. Let E1, E2, E3 be, okay, n is greater than or equal to 3. Therefore, these are the standard basic vectors, but they are not all the basic vectors, because if n is strictly greater than 3, I have to add some more. Okay, I hope all of you know what is E1 in the terms of row notation. O1 0 0 and E3 will be and 0 0. Okay, this will be n minus 1 zeros, and E3 will be 0 0 what after that 0 0, and this will be n minus 3 vector zeros, and so on. You understood that? Okay. Now my S is going to be, let us say, E1 and E2, right? Yeah. Now let us look at a vector W which is in the linear span of S. Let W equal to E1 plus E2 or E1 minus E2 also will do. Okay, anything, right? Now I want to say I can replace one of these vectors in S by W. That is, I can consider a set A which is equal to E1 plus E2, or B which is equal to E1 plus E2. And what I want to claim is one of the vectors in S can be replaced by W, and if this is linearly independent, this will also be linearly independent. A or B will also be linearly independent, and the linear span of S is same as linear span of A, and similarly linear span of B. In this case, I can do that. Are you following? Yeah. But do you think I can replace by E3? No, I can't do that. Or do you think I can replace by something else? Okay, let us do that. Okay, let's look at this example. That's enough. Let me go to the theorem. So what is the proposition says? This is called usually exchange lemma or replacement lemma. So what does it say? It says, suppose we want to let V be a vector space, and let we want to Vk be, yes, be linearly independent, right? Let W be any non-zero vector, and let W belong to linear span of S. You understood that? Here what did you do? V1, V2 is E1, E2, and W was E1 plus U2, and W is non-zero. Then what I want to say is there exists J so that Vj can be exchanged or replaced by W. What does that mean? This is just mnemonic. What it means is, then let us look at V equal to V1 to Vj minus 1, Vj plus 1, and Vk and W, or W here. W union Vi I not equal to J, right? Then there exists a J so that if B is this, first B is linearly independent, and 2, linear span of B is same as linear span of S. So go through this. So what are we looking at? We are looking at V1 to Vk linearly independent set. Then we are starting with the W, which is the linear span of S. And I will assume W is non-zero. Then what I want to say, I can replace one of the Vj's in the original set S by W. That means I knock off Vj and in its place put W. Okay. Now I get a new set. The new set consists of V1, V2, Vj minus 1, Vj plus 1, Vk, and along with W. Now I want to make two claims. What are the two claims? The new set B is linearly independent. Okay. The nature of the set has not changed. The S was linearly independent, B will also be linearly independent. Next, very interesting. The linear span of B will be exactly the same as the linear span of S. Do you understand these two statements? Good. Now let us prove that. So let us prove one by one. Okay. How do I find a G? How do I find the Vj which can be knocked off? See, for example, in this case, suppose my S1 was E1, E2, E3, right? My W1 is E1 plus E2. Now you can see I can replace E1 by E1 plus E2 or E2 by E1 plus E2, but I cannot replace E3 by E1 plus E2. Why? If I replace, what will I have? I'll have my B will be E1, E2 and E1 plus E2. The linear span will be the same as the linear span of E1 and E2. So E3 will be missing. You understood that? So that gives us an idea how to look for. So now suppose W is non-zero, right? And it is in the linear span of S. Therefore, I can write it as, let us say C1 V1 plus CK VK, right? Now, since this is non-zero, this implies there is a J such that Cj is not zero, right? If all Ci's are zero, then W will be zero, right? Since this is non-zero, there is a J. So that particular Vj is what I can knock off. I can replace it by W, right? So our B therefore will be W and union Vi, where I is not equal to J. Notice that in the earlier case, let us look at E1 E plus E2. This is my W, right? When I express it in linear combination E1 E2 E3, it is going to be 1 times E1 plus 1 times E2 plus 0 times E3. You understand? Therefore, my C1 is non-zero, C2 is also non-zero. So therefore, I could have replaced either E1 or E2 by E1 plus E2. Please understand, take some time, look at concrete examples. It helps us appreciate what is happening. Okay, this is our B. So we want to prove B is linearly independent. Okay, so let us assume AW plus A1W1 plus AJ minus 1 WJ minus 1. No, sorry, not A. This is B1 Vj minus 1, AJ plus 1 Vj plus 1 plus AK Vk equal to 0. Okay, I will write it in shorthand notation. AW plus summation AI Vi I not equal to J. Suppose this is 0. Then what I have to prove? We want to prove whether all A's are 0. A is 0 and A is 0. Of course, for I not equal to J, because no AJ does not appear here at all. Okay, I have to prove that. Okay, suppose A is not equal to 0. We will look at different cases. I claim A has to, okay, suppose A is not equal to 0, right? That means AW is going to be minus of AI Vi I not equal to J. That means W is going to be minus 1 by A into AI Vi I not equal to J. You understand this? Yeah. Let us write it for your convenience. Let me write it minus A1 by A V1 minus A J minus 1 by A V J minus 1 minus a j plus 1 by a v j plus 1 minus a k by a v k. You understood that? So I have written W as a linear combination of V1, Vj minus 1, Vj plus 1, Vk. But remember, I had already written W as a linear combination of V1, Vk. And since V1, V2, Vk are linearly independent, okay, right? If V1, V2, Vk are linearly independent, if I write any vector W as a linear combination of V1, V2, Vk, the coefficients are unique. Okay, just let's quickly go through the proof. Suppose B is A1, V1 plus AK, Vk, which is also equal to B1, V1 plus BK, Vk. Then B minus V is 0, but that is A1 minus B1, V1 plus AK minus BK, Vk. This is equal to 0. But remember, V1, V2, Vk are linearly independent. That means each of the coefficients must be 0. That means AI equal to BI for all I. You understood? So this is just a digression. Okay. See, whenever you learn some such things, small things like this, it will come in the proof. Then what you should do is you should reflect upon it. You should not simply say, yeah, it should be true. Assume that. No. This way of cross-checking small things on the way will help you acquire mastery over the subject. Okay. Okay. Let the digression be over. Now come back. So what does it mean? Because your expressions are unique. Now Vj, does it appear here? Therefore I can write it as something 0 times Vj. You understood that? Because Vj does not appear in this expression. Therefore it means 0 times Vj. Now the expression is unique. That means C1 must be equal to minus A1 by A, Ck equal to minus Ak by A, and Cj must be 0. Now do you see the contradiction? Because by our assumption Cj is not 0. So this contradiction proves that, okay, if that A is not equal to 0 is not correct. You follow that? So we conclude A must necessarily be 0. Do you understand? So PRP. So we conclude A must be 0. So in this expression A, so AW plus A1 V1 Aj minus 1 Vj minus 1 plus Aj plus 1 Vj plus 1 Ak Vk. This is equal to 0. We understood A is 0. Therefore, this is 0. Therefore, what do I have? I have A1 Ai Vi I not equal to J is 0. That is, these terms are 0. But remember, V1 to Vk is linearly independent. Therefore, V1 to Vj minus 1, Vj plus 1, any proper subset. Okay, this will also be linearly independent. Right? Therefore, this what does this show? This shows that A is 0 for all I, of course not equal to J. Now, so what did we do? Assume that AW plus A1 V1 plus this etc. AKVK is 0. Then I have proved A must be 0 and all the A's which occur here also 0. That means B is linearly independent. This is proved. Do you understand this? So PRP. So we have proved B is linearly independent. Now I have to prove B linear span of B is same as linear span of S. Notice that what is the difference between B and S? B is W union Vi I not equal to J and S is all Vi. 1 less than equal to I less than equal to K. Yeah. So to prove this equality, I have to prove the left side is a subset of the right side and the right side is a subset of the left side. Do you understand this? Okay, these are all very easy, but as I said, going through this kind of small proofs will make you more confident. Okay, and will also allow you to master how to work with the concepts of linear algebra. So let us start with the vector b in ls of b. Okay, what does that mean? B is of the form some, let me write a, this is not be confused with the earlier aw plus summation ai vi I not equal to g. Do you understand that? B belong to ls of b means it must be linear combination of these vectors from b. That's what this is. But what is w? Remember, w itself is summation ci vi. I runs from 1 to k all. Therefore, this I can write as, okay, summation cr vr r equal to 1 to k plus summation ai vi I not equal to j. What does that mean? We have written v as a linear combination of v1 to vk. Are you following? If you want, I can rewrite it. What will I rewrite? I will write it as summation bj bi vi I equal to 1 to k. What is bi? Bi equal to just ci plus ai for I not equal to j. And what is bj? See, now j only comes here. Okay, that's equal to, when I equal to j, that will be only cj. Okay, this just to writing excruciating detail. Okay, but the moment you see this, you already know it's a linear, v is a linear combination of v1 to vk. Therefore, b belong to ls of s. Okay, but if you want to write it as a explicitly linear combination, you have to specify the coefficients. That's what I'm trying to do. But in principle, that's not needed. But a beginner should always try such things because that makes you more confident. Okay, is that clear? So I have proved this one. Okay, this part is over. Now I have to prove the other way around. But that's also equally easy. Suppose now some other, okay, u belong to ls of s. Now I have to prove whether u belong to ls of b, right? Okay. Now notice that u belong to ls of s. That means u equal to bi vi, I equal to 1 to k. But remember w, let's go back, we have written w equal to summation ci vi with cj not equal to 0. Therefore, cj vj, you understand that, equal to w minus ci vi I not equal to j. W minus this will be 0. Okay, therefore I am taking the cj vj to that side. Are you sure about this? Okay, that means Vj is actually 1 by Cj into W minus Civi I not equal to G. Yeah. Therefore, I can write U as V1 V1 plus Bj minus 1 Bj minus 1 plus Bj Vj plus Bj plus 1 Vj plus 1 plus Bk Vk. But in place of Vj, I can substitute this. So I will have B1 B1 plus Bj minus 1 Bj minus 1 plus Bj by Cj into W minus summation Civi I not equal to J and plus 1. You follow that? Yeah. Now do you see that? Now therefore this, what are the things which are involved? B1 Bj minus 1 Bj plus 1 Vk and W. Therefore this belong to ls of b. If you want to write, As I did in this case, you can write down explicitly what should be the coefficients of u in terms of B, the vectors from B. Okay, you can explicitly write it, but that's not needed. Look at it. The right side involves only B, Vi I not equal to J and W. Therefore, it belongs to a linear combination of LS of W. Therefore, what do you think I have proved? I have proved B is linear. Okay, linear span of B is same as linear span of S. Therefore, 2 is also proved. Okay, so B is linearly independent and the linear span of B is same as linear span of S. Is that all right? So this lemma is completely proved now. But still, our thing, the major theorem remains. What is the theorem? The theorem is if V is finite-dimensional vector space and B1, B2 are bases, then modulus B1 equal to modulus B2. This we have to prove. Okay, let us assume this as M element, this is N elements, and let us assume B1 equal to V1 to Vm and B2 equal to W1 to Wn. We want to prove M is equal to N. Is that okay? Right. Now we want to use the last exchange lemma. Okay. What we want, the strategy is to replace, okay, V1 by, not V1, some vector in B1 by W1. Then replace some other vector in B, whatever remaining thing, by W2 and so on. Let me go slow. Notice that, let us look at W1. W1 belongs to LS of B1 and W1 is not equal to 0. Why it's not equal to 0? Because B2 is a basis, no element, and therefore it's a linearly independent set. Therefore, no element of B2 can be 0 vector. You understand? Therefore, by the last lemma, I know there is an I1 so that, okay, Vi1 can be replaced by W1. You understood? Therefore, I get, let us call, okay, maybe let me call it B and B dash, B and B dash. Okay, therefore I get a basis, new basis B1, which consists of W1 and union Vi, where I is not equal to I1. That's the reason why you just wanted to change linear B. Is that clear? Why this is the basis? Remember, it's linearly independent and the linear span of B1 is same as the linear span of B. Therefore, B1 is a spanning set which is also linearly independent. Therefore, this is the basis. Okay, just understand how we concluded that. Okay, we know LS of B1 is LS of B, but LS of B is B. That means B1 spans B. Therefore, B1 is a spanning set B. And we also said B1, since B is linearly independent, B1 is also linearly independent. Therefore, B1 is a spanning set and linearly independent. Therefore, by our characterization of basis, B1 is a basis of B. You understood that? That's why I like the proof, because you see that we have to keep on using so many facts about linear algebra. Whereas in the simpler proof first I gave very, very minimal linear algebra. Okay. Now what do I have? I have B1, okay, and I have B dash, which is W1, W2, and Wn. Now what is the thing I will do? Now what I will do is I will replace some vector in B1 by W2. So suppose my W2, if I write it as A W1, plus summation Ci Vi I not equal to Ai Vi I not equal to I1, right? Because it's belong to linear span of B1, right? I claim at least one AI is non-zero. Okay, there is I such that one AI is non-zero. Suppose all AIs are zero. That means W2 is AI W1. This implies W1 W2 is a subset of B dash. This is linearly dependent because this is a scalar multiple of the other. But this is linearly independent. That's a contradiction. Therefore, I know there is an I so that A is non-zero. That I we call as I2. Then we can replace Vi2 by W2. So what do we get? We will get a B2, which will be W1 and W2, and union Vi. I is not equal to I1 and I2. And what do we know? This is the basis of V. Is that clear? So I can proceed this way. Till when? Suppose n is less than m, then up to n steps I can go. If I go up to n steps, what will I end up with? I will end up with a Bn, which would accommodated all my W1 to Wn, and then there will be some leftovers where I is not equal to I1 to In. After n steps, I arrive at a basis. Notice that this is a basis. And how many vectors will be there? M minus n vectors. Okay. Now I want to arrive at a contradiction. What is the contradiction? Remember, B dash is W1 to W1. This is already a basis of V. And let us look at the VR, which is in this set. Call this set as C. Take a VR in this set. Because remember, M is strictly greater than n, therefore there is at least one element here. Call it VR, right? Now VR is an element of V, and W1 to Wn is a basis of V. Therefore V I should be is in the linear span of W1 to Wn, or which is same as saying V is equal to summation some Vi Wi I equal to 1 to n. You understand that? That means W1 to Wn VR is linearly dependent. Yes, but this is a subset of Bn, which is linearly independent. You understand? Yes, 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 subset of a linearly independent. So it is linearly dependent. That's wrong. Therefore, what do I know? Okay, why did this contradiction? This is absurd. So why did this absurdity arise? That's because I assumed n is less than m. Therefore, I can carry out n steps. So this is wrong. Therefore, what should I conclude? Therefore, we conclude n is greater than or equal to m. Now start with the B2, okay, and replace elements of B2 by elements of, start with the B dash and replace the elements of B dash by B. Then what will I have? By as earlier, I will conclude, okay, m is greater than or equal to n. This is same as saying B dash is greater than or equal to B. Here I will have B is greater than or equal to B dash. You understand? Therefore, I conclude m equal to n. So the theorem is proved. Okay. So as you can see, the second proof is a lot more demanding. Yeah. But the positive part of that, if you go through the second proof, don't worry about whether you will remember, because that's the unfortunate thing. Every time student thinks of exam, writing, remembering, please don't. Go through the proof once more. Okay, you will appreciate lot of concepts of linear algebra are involved in that. So you will become very confident, and that's the only way to master the subject. I hope you enjoy. We'll meet again.